Hello everybody, welcome to The World This Week. This week, we'll focus on dramatic political developments from London to Ottawa to the presidential campaign in the US. We'll go first to London, where a surprising victory in the Labour Party left everybody in shock, including the winner. We are pleased to speak again with New York Times Bureau Chief in London, Stephen Erlanger. Thank you very much, Stephen. Good to see you again.
Happy to do it.
Now, it looks like, even Jeremy Corbyn himself has to digest this win.
He certainly does. I think he was as much surprised as anyone else. I mean, the idea of Jeremy Corbyn becoming leader of the Labour Party even 2 months ago seems so implausible. You would have much been better to bet on an asteroid hitting the Earth. But he began to like it, frankly, and he drew big crowds, and he got a lot of young people. And frankly, by comparison, I mean, his three opponents were 20 years younger at least and seemed very unsure of themselves and unsure of their positions. The thing about Corbyn, at the age of 66 and having been elected in 1983, I mean, he is who he is, and he knows who he is, and he doesn't fumble around for positions. Now, you may think some of his positions are old-fashioned or wrong-headed, but they are his, and they've been his for quite a long time. So he is quite sincere when he speaks, and, seems genuinely a kind of recognizable figure in Britain of the so-called hard left, someone who believes in peace rather than war, who's angry at inequality, who wants a better deal for the working person. This is all very predictable, and there's not actually that much surprising about him.
Is this part of the huge disappointment among Labour voters from their own party?
Oh, yes, terribly. I mean, what happened really is they got clobbered in May. It really was a disaster. They lost all of Scotland, which was very important to them. And even had they not lost Scotland so badly, they probably would have lost the election because they didn't do nearly as well in England as they expected. There was a big rise in English nationalism. And the third party, the Liberal Democrats, simply collapsed. So, Labour really had a lot of soul-searching to do. Now, one would have thought that they would have said to themselves, gee, how can we become more electable? But in fact, they decided, let's go back to our roots and see what happens.
So there's a sense of punishing the party?
Well, there's a sense of people in the party which has always had, I would say, a bit of ambivalence about itself because, it was founded as a socialist party. It was a trade union party. It was a workers' party. And the world has changed. And there's always been a significant minority within the party that has resented the move toward the center, that has resented the move toward modernity, that has resented the move toward business, that feels Labour has lost its soul by becoming, more of a social democratic party of a very European kind. And those people, who felt the party lost its balance under Tony Blair, though it had won elections, that it had become too much like the Tories, had a kind of just a sense that now clearly the Miliband thing didn't work, Ed Miliband didn't work, so let's get behind someone who can clearly stand for what we believe in. And maybe the country will come with us. I mean, certainly young people are coming with them. And the issue of inequality is a very powerful one in Britain as well as in the United States because it is a growing problem. And if you connect it to, the anti-Wall Street movement of young people or the anti-business sense or the feeling that the earth is being poisoned by business or that simply government is no longer answerable to the people, you get a wave of support for someone who says, all for one and one for all.
Is there a chance that one day Corbyn will become a prime minister?
No, I don't think there's any chance that Corbyn will one day be prime minister. The big question is whether he'll last out 5 years until the next election. I mean, you know, this to some degree, it's a blast from the past. I mean, it is the 1983 Labour Party manifesto. But Jeremy Corbyn, you know, in his heart of hearts, he's anti-royalist. He doesn't want the monarchy. He doesn't like singing the national anthem. He wants to get out of NATO. He doesn't believe in the nuclear deterrent. He doesn't want Britain fighting anywhere for any particular reason. This is not where Britain is. Britain is basically a kind of center-right country. It's not a left-wing country. And I think Labour has, you know, will soon discover that it has left the center of British politics wide open, and that the Conservative Party is going to try to take advantage of that as best it can.
Let me ask you this. Do you happen to find any similarities between the Trump phenomena in the States and Corbyn in Britain?
Well, I think the similarity is more between Bernie Sanders than Trump. I mean, Bernie Sanders is a socialist. He was a mayor in Vermont. He's a college professor. I mean, he's of roughly Corbyn's age. And believes in many of the same things. And he's giving Hillary Clinton a hard time for the Democratic nomination. And again, I think he's going to lose it to her. But the Trump phenomenon is an entirely different thing. That's a right-wing Republican thing. And Corbyn is not like Trump. Corbyn won't remind you of a guy blustering in a bar, issuing kind of big ukaz statements about nothing. Corbyn, if anything, is boring. I mean, he's very interested in policy. He means to be thoughtful. He wants everyone to have a say. I mean, he's very much a kind of old-fashioned left-wing guy. He's not a big businessman, shoot from the hip, right-wing Republican like Trump.
Stephen Erlanger in London, I thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm happy to do it, and all the best to you.
The immigration issue took center stage in American politics thanks to Donald Trump. It is now one of the main issues of the presidential campaign, with lots of ridiculous numbers, misconceptions, and just plain lies. With us from New York now is our I-24 News correspondent Daniel Ziri to put some things in context and perspective. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Jacob.
First of all, Trump is waging a war on Mexico. Where do the immigrants actually come from?
It's true that the Mexican illegal immigrants do make up 52% of the illegal immigrants in the United States, so definitely half of them. But the other half comes from different countries across Asia, the Caribbean countries, definitely also Canada, which shares a border with the U.S., and we have a hard time picturing Canadians being illegal immigrants in the U.S., but definitely is a big number. And also Middle East, Africa. So definitely there's a larger extent to the illegal immigration phenomenon, and it's not just about Mexicans. And actually, the numbers even show that the Mexican illegal immigration has dropped over the years.
Well, surely most of them are not criminals, as Trump implies.
No, they're not all criminals, that's for sure. Actually, if we look closely at the statistics, you'll see that not only they are less likely, illegal immigrants and legal immigrants, immigrants in general, are less likely to be found behind bars or to commit crimes than the native-born, but more than that, actually we see that an increased number of immigrants in a country, actually in the United States more specifically, actually brought down crime.
Trump also says that he would deport all those millions, maybe at least 11 millions. How is that possible?
Well, actually, it's not. In order to deport those 11.3 million people, a mass deportation like that would take between $400 billion to $600 billion. And not only it would be so expensive, but it will bring a slowdown to the U.S. economy of almost $2 trillion. Donald Trump is a very, very rich man, but I don't think he has that kind of money.
So one would ask how Trump continues with that without being seriously challenged.
I think the biggest appeal of Donald Trump is that he really comes off as saying out loud what everyone thinks and doesn't want to say, and that really appeals to people who already have opinions that sort of match Donald Trump's policies. And so that's how he makes his way around. And, you know, he criticized Jeb Bush for saying that immigrants come out of an act of love, and he said, you know, forget the love and get tough. I guess that's a good advice to give the other Republican candidates at this point.
Daniel Ziri, our correspondent in New York City. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jacob.
You know, the American presidential campaign is not the only one in North America. Canadians will go to the polls on October 19th and are experiencing the longest campaign ever. To get some insight on this, from Ottawa, Canada, with us is Rosemary Barton, political correspondent at CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Canada have some serious economic issues, and it's in danger of entering a recession. Are these elections all about the economy?
Well, technically, we were in a recession for the first half of this year. Whether we're still in a recession remains to be seen. But yes, the economy has become the dominant issue for this election campaign. And it's something, to be fair, that the Conservative government, the incumbents under Stephen Harper, our Prime Minister, want to talk about. They believe that they have managed the economy well since the global meltdown in 2008, and they believe that the plan is working.
According to the polls, Prime Minister Stephen Harper has some hard time.
We are still with 31 days left to go, and already having done more than 40 days of campaigning in a dead heat, in a three-way race. And that's not something that Canada is familiar with. It's not something that typically happens. And for whatever reason, and it may just be because Canadians just haven't made up their mind yet, we remain sort of in a deadlock right now. So it is anybody's election to win still.
How was the latest debate on TV a few days ago?
Interesting and probably informative for Canadians, but I don't think it broke that deadlock in any substantial way. You saw Mr. Harper very much on the defensive about his record, the fact that he's had 6 deficits, you know, in part because of things going on in the world, in part because of the decisions that his government made. And you saw the other 2 leaders, Tom Mulcair, the leader of the New Democratic Party, and Justin Trudeau, the leader of the Liberal Party, trying to present alternate views of what the economy should be. So it was informative for Canadians, probably, but I don't think that it really in any way substantively changed where we're at in this race.
According to the polls, the NDP could be on a verge of making history. Is this possible?
It is possible, and it's possible in a way it never has been before. For people that don't know, the NDP had, for the first time in the last election, formed the official opposition in this country. That was already a breakthrough. Now, for the first time ever, there's a real possibility they could form government. They have some things to overcome in order to do that. One of them is their credibility around the economy, because they've never run a federal government in this country before. There's some weakness there and some vulnerability.
And you have Justin Trudeau, the son of the legendary Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. Is he electable?
He is electable, and because it's a three-way race, there's a possibility that he wins as well. Where Mr. Trudeau is his weakness, if you will, the thing that he is having to overcome, is his lack of experience. He's a younger politician, hasn't been in the game as long as these other 2 leaders, so he's having to overcome that. You know, but he's still very much a possibility here, and the thing that he has going for him, as well as his youth and his name, which is, of course, widely recognized in this country and around the world, is his likability. He is a very, charming, effusive person, got lots of energy, and that is proving to be tough tough for the other leaders to attack, because it's something that is attractive to Canadians to see someone who's young and likable and trying to put a positive spin on politics.
Rosemary, can you draw some comparisons between the Canadian campaign and the one across the border?
Well, I don't know that there are a lot of comparisons. We do politics pretty differently. We are not as inclined to be as personal in terms of attacks. I think if you look at what's going on in the Republican campaign right now, there's an awful lot of talk about people's appearances and their past records. That's not something that Canadians feel particularly comfortable with, and it's not something that we do. So I'm not sure there's a lot of comparisons, other than the fact that for the first time ever, we're having a long campaign, which is something, of course, that Americans are all too too familiar with.
The issue of immigration in the American campaign resonates in Canada?
I don't think so. I mean, we are having a conversation right now, as I think there are many places in the world having a conversation about the Syrian refugee crisis. That has made its way into this campaign in a way that we probably didn't expect, in part because of that picture of the young Turkish boy washed up on the shore dead, and the connection that it had to Canada because one of his aunts lives in Canada. So that sort of changed the debate around that and led to questions about whether the government, the Conservative government, has done enough for refugees in general. But the issue of immigration in Canada is very different than it is in the United States. We are not as, I would say, closed-minded as we've seen, at least from some of the people within the Republican Party, to the idea of letting people into this country to participate.
Rosemary Barton in Ottawa, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And this has been The World This Week. We'll see you here next Sunday. Have a great week.